Welcome to another video. It came to my attention that The Lord of the Rings is one of the most beloved franchises, with great characters and a great setting. But there is a dark side. Some of these characters make some really bad decisions. Damaging, dangerous decisions. So, let's take a look at just how damaging these decisions are. Also, shout out to my friend, Chen Ye. At number 17, we have Gandalf the Grey. Now, I don't think this one should really be on the list, but because of the events that transpire in this, it makes it. Anyway, Gandalf goes to see Saruman in Isengard, and the reason why he does this is because he discovers that Bilbo's old ring is the one true ring, so he wants to know what should be done about the situation. So, the two wizards have their wizard talk, or whatever you call it, and eventually the topic of the ring comes up. Saruman tries to convince Gandalf to join the side of Mordor because apparently at this point, Saruman and Isengard have already teamed up with Mordor. I know, shocking. Obviously, Gandalf refuses and tries to leave. Saruman closes the doors, and then the two fight. And interestingly enough, both wizards are pretty equal, so neither is stronger than the other, but of course, eventually, Saruman gets the upper hand, and he defeats Gandalf, and then he imprisons him. So, once again, I don't think it's a mistake by Gandalf to go to see Saruman, because that is the logical thing he should have done, and I would have made the same choice. But because Gandalf does lose a fight, and he gets imprisoned, he makes the list. At number 16, we have the Nazgul, the Ringwraiths, the kings who are once men. This is after Frodo gets stabbed by a Morgul blade, and he's passing into the Shadow Realm. After this, Arwen appears out of nowhere, and she decides to help Frodo, which I still have no idea where she even came from, but because she's the fastest rider, she takes Frodo, and she goes. Now, we come to a point where it's 9 versus 1. You've got 9 Ringwraiths and 1 elf. Well, Frodo is with Arwen, but because he's out of it, he doesn't really count. So, it's 9 versus 1. So, there should easily be one winner. And there is. It's Arwen. I still have no idea how this even happens, because if you've got 9 Ringwraiths, they should easily win against the 1. Now, I am underestimating just how fast Arwen is. She's extremely fast with her horse, but even so, if you've got 9 riders against 1, the 9 should win. And to make matters even worse, the Ringwraiths chase Arwen so far into Elven territory that Arwen is able to use one of her spells to wipe them out. And to go even further beyond that, this was the perfect opportunity to capture the ring, and the Nazgul failed. At number 15, we have Gandalf the Grey. Shortly after the Fellowship gets discovered by the enemy, Gandalf thinks it'll be a good idea to go through the pass of Cadrahas. So everyone goes. Things are fine at the beginning, but shortly afterwards, the gang is hit by storms and avalanches, which we find out that Saruman is causing these storms. And it doesn't really make any sense, because how on earth is Saruman able to affect weather from hundreds of leagues away? But anyway, he does. So the thing here is that Gandalf should know how powerful a wizard Saruman actually is. So he should have known from the beginning that going through the pass was never a good idea. But he decides to go anyway. He should know exactly how powerful Saruman is. So this would have never worked from the start. At number 14, we have Bilbo Baggins. This is where Bilbo Baggins puts on the ring at his birthday party, which you can't really blame him for doing this because he didn't know what the ring was, but just because you made a mistake without realizing you made one doesn't mean you didn't make a mistake. You still made one, and this mistake puts himself and everyone around him in serious danger. At number 13, we have Gandalf the Grey. This is yet another bad idea by Gandalf. For one, the Misty Mountains are an open field, so you can be easily detected by the enemy. And just on that, I know the gang does hide under rocks and vegetation when they are discovered by Sauron spies, but this is a very convenient location within the mountains because when you look at the whole area, it's an open field. And number 2, I'm not quite sure how, but Saruman is consistently finding out where the Fellowship is. Now, I know he does have spies, but this seems a little ridiculous. Now, maybe I'm underestimating just how powerful a wizard Saruman actually is, but not only is he a powerful wizard, but he's also a resourceful wizard because he seems to have a solution for every single situation. So maybe Saruman is just that epic of a wizard. And if that's the case, Gandalf should come up with better plans to better counter Saruman. At number 12, we have Frodo Baggins. This is where Frodo decides the group should go through the mines of Moria. Similar to an early example, this one isn't really a mistake because the group had already been through the Misty Mountains and also the Pass of Cadrahas, and because of Saruman, they were forced into this decision. Now, you could argue that they could have taken alternative routes, but those routes would have taken a lot more time, and because they didn't have a lot of time, they had to go through the mines. At number 11, we have Sauron. This is when Sauron tries to grab Isildur, and he gets his hand cut off and separated from the ring. Not only does Sauron die, or supposedly dies, but he also loses the war, and also the ring. I'm not sure why Sauron tries to grab Isildur. Before this, he was swinging his mace and taking out 10 enemies at a time. So for him to think that he can just grab Isildur, his ego must have gone to his head. He thought he was so powerful that he could do whatever he wanted, and he paid the price. At number 11, we have Frodo Baggins. This is when Frodo accidentally puts on the ring in a tavern in Bree called the Prancing Pony. I, for the life of me, will never understand why Frodo puts on the ring in this way, because all he had to do while he was falling was catch the ring, instead of putting it on. In fact, it's even harder to do what Frodo did, instead of catching the ring. He literally slips the ring onto one of his fingers, which is absolutely ridiculous. And all he ends up doing is drawing the Ringwraiths towards him, and nearly gets everyone killed. At number 9, we have Peregrin Took. This one is number 9 because it causes number 10. So, staying inside the Prancing Pony, Pippin starts telling people around him Frodo's real name and bits of information about him, which I don't think Pippin really understands the situation they're in, because Sauron's spies could have been inside that tavern. For all he knows, Aragorn in the corner could have been one of Sauron's spies. So you've got to be extremely careful what you tell people. And also, this causes Frodo to slip over and put on the ring, which puts everyone at risk. At number 8, we have dwarves. We find out from Saruman that dwarves mined in the mines of Moria, but they got too greedy and dug far too deep, awaking a Balrog, an ancient demon, and they ended up wiping themselves out, and also unleashing evil upon the world. At number 7, we have Saruman. This is after Saruman defeats Gandalf and imprisons him, and then he starts building an army. It's surprising to me that Saruman spends so much time overseeing this build, rather than watching Gandalf, because it's not like he easily defeated Gandalf. They were both on equal footing, until somehow Saruman got a hold of Gandalf's staff, and he took advantage. So the fact that he doesn't spend nowhere near enough time watching him as he should is absolutely scandalous. And that's one of the reasons why Gandalf is able to escape. I just can't believe Saruman's attitude. For a wizard as wise as him, this was a pretty stupid move. At number 6, we have Gandalf the Grey. This was a tough one to take. This is when Gandalf fights against the Balrog, and he wins. But shortly afterwards, he gets dragged down by the Balrog's fire whip, and he falls. I don't think this was a mistake, because if Gandalf hadn't fought against the Balrog, everyone would have been wiped out, no doubt about it. But because Gandalf is such an important member of the group, I think he's one of the most important, because he has the most information, he's the most wise, and also he's a powerful wizard, so he's able to protect everyone. So the fact that he goes down in this situation is absolutely devastating. And I don't think, again, it's really a mistake, but it has such a massive impact on the entire group and on the Fellowship. At number 5, we have Boromir. This is where Boromir tries to take the ring from Frodo. And this whole situation is even more ridiculous in the books. Anyway, Boromir scares away Frodo, makes him put on the ring, and draws enemies towards them. He gets himself killed, and he splits up the Fellowship. Oh, and also, Merry and Pippin get kidnapped. Ridiculous. At number 4, we have Meriadoc Brandybuck. This is when Merry starts throwing rocks into a lake outside of Moria, and Aragorn stops him. For a movie where characters don't make many obvious mistakes, this one is just ridiculous, because all Merry managed to accomplish was he wakes a kraken in the lake, which immediately tries to eat Frodo, and if it wasn't for the quick actions of others, Frodo would have been eaten, and that would have been it. Everyone would have gone home, and the world would have been doomed, because we all know that Frodo is just about the only person who can take the ring from the Shire to the fires of Mount Doom without being completely corrupted. At number 3, we have Peregrin Took. This takes place in the mines of Moria. So Gandalf is reading an old book, and at the same time, Pippin is playing with an iron helm and a skeleton, which he drops down a well by accident. But it makes a huge amount of noise, which alerts the enemy to their location, and the enemy happens to have a mountain troll. This guy is a liability. Now, I know he didn't mean to drop a skeleton down a well, but when you look at the previous example, when he's throwing rocks into a lake and waking krakens, you would have thought that he would have been a little bit more careful, but obviously not. And because of this, he nearly gets everyone killed once again. At number 2, we have Sam, Pippin, and Merry. This might be worse than the last two combined. After the Ringwraiths show up in Bree, Aragorn takes Sam, Pippin, Merry, and Frodo into the wild to try and escape. Eventually they end up at some sort of plateau, a raised ground and a sacred place. During the night, Sam, Pippin, and Merry build a fire and start cooking food, which of course draws the Ringwraiths to their location. I just can't believe how brain dead some of these hobbits are. The fact that they didn't think this was a bad idea and they couldn't critically think in this situation is absolutely ridiculous. And to make matters worse, Frodo gets stabbed by a Morgul blade, and he nearly passes into the Shadow Realm. Also, if it wasn't for Aragorn, everyone would have been killed. At number 1, we have Isildur, son of Elendil, and king of Arnor and Gondor. This takes place in the fires of Mount Doom, where Isildur decides to keep the ring. I've never seen anything like it in fiction or real life, where you have someone go from being a legend to a complete loser. Isildur defeats one of the greatest enemies of all time, and then he doesn't destroy the ring. Like, how does this even happen? You even have Elrond himself begging Isildur to destroy the ring, and he says no. And then later on, he gets killed and dooms Middle-earth. This guy is a loser, and he deserves to be number 1.